Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, the 6th of June, 2025. Today is day 609 since October 7th of 2023. Today, I spent time with a mentor of mine who introduced me to the very first time to the Middle East more than a decade ago, almost 2 decades ago. He's 98 years old this month, and I'm grateful to him and to so many others who've educated us about what's happening in the Middle East. And that's what we seek to do in terms of these daily videos. In terms of news over the last 24 hours or so, Cardinal Parolin, who's the Secretary of State of the Vatican, he's been talking about several issues that are central to the Holy See's attention. Many people have been asking, what's going to happen with the new Pope and His Holiness Pope Leo? And one of the things that he talked about was the terrible images coming from Gaza, the recent anti-Semitic attacks in Washington, D.C., and other challenges towards peace around the world. Cardinal Parolin was asked, Your Eminence, in Gaza, children are dying of hunger, the population is exhausted, bombs are falling on schools and hospitals, yet there's nothing that does not seem to be any intention. There seems to be no intention to stop the bombs. And he responded and said, what's happening in Gaza is unacceptable. International humanitarian law must always apply to everyone. We call for an end to the bombardments and the necessary aid to reach the population. I believe the international community must do everything possible to bring this tragedy to an end. He was also asked about October 7th. He said, at the same time, we demand and reiterate that Hamas immediately release all of the hostages that it holds and return the bodies of those who were killed after the barbaric attacks on the 7th of October in 2023 against Israel. When asked, how do you react to the recent attack in Washington to the 2 members of the Israeli embassy, the staff that were killed? He said, it shook me profoundly. Just as on October 7th, they were innocent victims. And these were also committed to peace and humanitarian initiatives. We must remain vigilant and ensure that the cancer of anti-Semitism, never fully defeated, does not rear its head again. The U.S. yesterday vetoed, so we're shifting to New York at the United Nations, the Security Council's draft resolution that was calling for an unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The acting ambassador to the UN, her name is Dorothy Shea, and she stated that the draft resolution would undermine diplomatic efforts to reach a ceasefire and did not condemn Hamas or call for the group to disarm and leave Gaza. All other 14 members favored the document and voted in favor of the resolution. The U.S. and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has not yet reopened its aid distribution sites, not as of mid-morning today. They were closed all day yesterday because of those recent deaths. This was a day after pausing aid distributions following the deadly shootings close to those sites. The GHF did not say when aid distribution will resume in Gaza. The Friends Committee for National Legislation put out a fact sheet I would call your attention to about the problematic nature of the Global Humanitarian Foundation, so you can find that on our social media. And the Israeli military today said it recovered bodies of 2 American hostages from the South Han Yunis area of Gaza. Netanyahu has said that he's been fighting Hamas in various ways, and one of the major things that came out in Israeli news is that that Netanyahu has been arming ISIS-affiliated militia in Gaza to fight against Hamas. So that is all over the international media. And Syria's new government agreed to give the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors immediate access to suspected former nuclear sites. Turkish prosecutors have opened an investigation on Özgür Özel, the leader of Turkey's main opposition, Republican People's Party, on charges of threatening and insulting Istanbul's chief prosecutor. This move adds to President Erdogan's broad crackdown on oppositions. Reuters reported that. Trump nominated the Vice Admiral Brad Cooper to take over the top military command in the Middle East, and Air Force Lieutenant General Dagvin Anderson to head U.S. African Command. That was announced by the Pentagon. There's a whole lot happening at Congress, and I'll close with this. The Block the Bombs Act is a standalone legislation that proactively challenges U.S. complicity in the atrocity of crimes against Palestinians in Gaza by prohibiting the sale or transfer of U.S. weapons that are most commonly used in the Israeli government's atrocities in Gaza. The legislation was introduced in May last month by Representative Ramirez from Illinois, Sarah Jacobs from California, Jayapal from Washington, and Mark Pocan, Wisconsin. They had a press conference recently. The Block the Bombs Act represents what the majority of Americans want: to stop sending weapons to Israel to carry out atrocities against Palestinians. Major labor unions like the NAACP, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and 250 human rights organizations have called on the U.S. to stop sending arms to Israel. I'm sure you're familiar that Churches for Middle East Peace has done so as well because of the belief that bombs have been used in the violation of international law. So that's an update today, this Friday, after 609 days of atrocities, calling for a comprehensive permanent ceasefire, calling for an end to all war and violence, the return of hostages and those held unjustly in Israeli prisons. May God go before us. In the name of Christ. Amen.